Hi, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to July 2025 meeting of the Detroit Tech Watch Meetup. My name is Honorio Catanacci. Since no one will ever remember how to pronounce that correctly, you can just call me O or whatever you like. Just as long as, just that guy over there, him. I'm one of the organizers, and Mike Onslow back there is the other organizer. I had a few people ask me, how long has this been going on? And somebody asked me before, I'll get to you, how long this has been going on. I just wanted to answer the question because a few people asked me about that. We have been holding this meetup, I checked, since 2019. Actually, Mike and I were both holding meetups before that, but we kind of combined our resources then. So at any rate, without any further ado, welcome Ravi. I'm not even going to bother to try to say your last name, man. I don't want to butcher it. Who's going to be talking to us about AI agents.
Thank you so much, everybody. Just talking about, hello. Can you guys hear me without the mic? I guess so. Thank you so much, Mike, for the opportunity. Thank you all for showing up this wonderful evening. And I'm going to try and keep it as much as not boring as possible and not too techie, borderline techie on this and see how it goes. And one more thing is that I sent a PDF file, so I cannot do a click and go. So I'll have to turn my back and moving this, so in case you guys have to see my back, sorry about that. So let's get started without much ado, and then we'll hold on to the questions to the end, so it'll be easier to answer them. And I'll pause between each section, so if you have questions, you can ask them too. All right, so we're going to talk about AI agents today. We're going to understand about what is AI agents, what difference they make to today's world and GPTs, where we are in the transition. And then we're going to talk about a little bit about architecture, how AI agents are architected. Finally, about security of AI agents as well. All right, that's me, a little bit about me, self-floating. So I'm an AIpreneur. I'd like to call myself that. I've been doing AI solutions for at least a good lot of the decade right now. About 30 years of tech experience, data engineering, most of it, and fintech, automotive, logistics, worked in all the big three. Founded Giggso, which is my company, and we've been doing AI engineering for almost 6-7 years now. We released our first AI-powered assistant in 2022, early 22, even before GPT was announced. So we were doing that with Google's BERT engine. So that was that. And I have an MBA in data science, master's in AI. I did my PG diploma in MIT, and a bunch of certifications, not of any consequence. But so I get into the main part, introduction to AI agents. So I'm sure everybody has worked with AI agents or AI, right? So anybody who's come right through the pants, right, landed up here, time traveled? No, right? So everybody is doing chat GPT and AI agents. Anybody not familiar with AI agents at all? Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. So everybody has been using chat GPT, I suppose, right? So chat GPT is a generative AI, and the model of chat GPT is that it is trained with a lot of data, and with trained LLMs, when you ask a question, it gives you an answer. So that's how GPT started. It was not the best of things in 2023. There were a lot of jokes around, but it has come a long way. 2025, GPT is so powerful that without GPT, I really cannot work. So that bad it has become. Right now, I'm not even sure what I can do without a GPT these days. So it is extremely powerful. But then we've moved from that specific point to where we are right now. I'll tell you where we are. But before that, there's something that's happening that's wonderful in the AI world, which is called agentic AI. So what are agents and agentic AI? We'll go into that a little bit deeper in the next slides. But the evolution is coming towards something called as fully realized agentic world. I'll talk about that briefly. What's a fully realized agentic world? Where you have mini AI agents or mini AI tools that can independently think. I shouldn't be using the word think, but there's no other better word to say. So independent agents, they converse with each other. They understand each other's output, and they're able to come up with autonomous decisions which can propel towards a specific task or a derivative. So there's a lot of questions and ethical concerns that are there, but that's the world we are heading into. So we're going to talk about what are AI agents and what is agentic AI. So these are kind of like tongue twisters, but at this point, you're going to talk about both of this, and hopefully I'll be a little bit clear in what I'm trying to say. AI agents are autonomous agents or software systems. So what they do is, if you ask a question, they'll rehearse through that. That's a better word to use, not thinking. So they'll rehearse through that. They will go ahead and understand the components of your question, try and decode it, find specific information, and align that information to answer your question. So that's the core idea behind an agent. You give it a specific task, it'll figure out a way to come out with an answer and provide that to you. And what is agentic AI? So this is where the notion goes to the next step. An agentic process is when the same agent from the previous step uses tools to go ahead and do stuff. Like, for example, when humans were apes, we really did not do much. We were sitting inside a cave, procreating, hunting for food, gathering food, something like that. But then you have the tool called fire, and then you started using that tool, and then you started inventing things, and then you start to evolve. So agentic AI refers to the part where systems can leverage tools and resources and memory to power the tasks efficiently and also act autonomously. And that's the most important part, autonomous actions. So in this diagram, I've given those three areas which made ape to a human, right? Memory, tools, and goals. So there's a derivative in there. There's a goal that it needs to act upon. And it uses the environment that's out there to understand what it needs to do and come to the answer that it's, or the goal that it needs to achieve. So this is a considerable jump from where we were a year, 2 years ago to where we are right now. And this would go into the next step where agents will talk to agents themselves and come to a derivative on that. There's already systems out there. One of our research teams is also working on that. So these are some of the key features of agentic workflows. Autonomy, that's the most important part. What is autonomy? It should be able to make its own decisions. Given the boundaries of rules that it has, it should be able to make its own decisions. Adaptability. What is adaptability? It can adapt to the environment. It can adapt to consequential questions. Has anybody here used Manus, Manus.ai? Fantastic. So when Manus is executing a task, so you ask it to prepare a presentation, do a bunch of stuff, it's executing a task. In the middle of it, if you stop, if you say some comments, it'll pause. It'll take your answer. It'll think. It'll adapt its whole process to what you've given it as a new information. You can do that to multiple other tools too. Why I use Manus is because Manus is truly an agentic AI system. That is adaptability. Earlier GPTs have to pause it. You give a question, it'll stop. And then it'll redo its entire thing. But Manus, the newer world of agentic AIs, are able to adapt to the environment that is happening. And the decision making. So they are able to make decisions based on your questions. So has anybody here worked on programmatic AI or no? Okay. So in the programmatic world, there's something called as DSPY. I'm going to get into that. Manus, MANUS. Yeah. So one thing about the decision-making part, right? So how many of you here know what is prompt engineering? Okay. So prompt engineering is pretty basic about AI. You give a set of prompts and the GPT responds to that. That is prompt engineering. However, it is not a sustainable thing because you have to write a lot of prompts. You have to adjust your prompts. You have to work through the prompts and make sure that the prompts work right. And you have to keep iteratively getting to a point where sometimes you just frustrate yourself and then shut down the laptop, go and do whatever you want, come back. So it's an art. It's literally an art. And there are courses, and there is about 2 years ago, people were saying that you should become a prompt engineer. I didn't know what that means, but even today I can't understand what prompt engineering means. But prompt engineering is an essential work that you need to make the LLM understand what you want, but it's not sustainable. And there is something called as DSPY. It's declarative self-programming model. So what it does is it automatically prompts based on your pre-written criteria. It'll start evolving its own prompts. It's not a new technology. It's been there for almost 2 years now. But why I'm selling that right now is because this decision making needs prompting to be optimal. And these kind of tools like DSPY help build that decision making process as AI evolves. So we are here now with agentic flows. I'll tell you the difference between AI agentic flow and a workflow in the next few slides. So we learned a bunch about AI agents, what they do, from apes to humans. And then there is something called as workflows. How many of people here have used workflows? Pretty much everybody has, right? In one way or the other. So can anybody say what they can think is the difference between a workflow and an agentic flow? Okay, that's close enough. I'm at the boundary. But that's a good attempt though. Workflow is deterministic. That's the biggest point about workflow. It's very deterministic. It you know what you want in the next step. It's a bunch of rules that are put together, if then else. So and we would call it as IFTTT, if then else. So workflows are very deterministic. You know exactly what you want at the next step. So it's very process driven, business process oriented, and it's extremely deterministic. AI agents are not deterministic. They have no rules. They have a boundary. They don't have rules inside the boundary. They can behave how they want. That opens up a huge can of security and ethics and rules and so many different privacy laws and different problems. We'll talk about that later. But this is the fundamental what you need to understand about workflows automation and agentic automation. Workflows, you really know what you want in the next step. There's no deviation from that. If an email comes in, you wanted to go check Salesforce. You wanted to make sure that the customer is there in Salesforce, what tools they have bought. You wanted to be returning that answer, and then you wanted to do something else, schedule an appointment. That is a workflow. You know exactly what you want. But in the world of agentic AI, you get an email. The agent decides if it wants Salesforce, or wants to schedule an appointment, or classify it as spam, junk it, or defer it to somebody else. It decides on the fly based on the content that's there. So the biggest example is in a workflow, when you get an email, giving the most rudimentary example of all. If you get an email, you would want a workflow to go check the CRM first. Be it a spam or not a spam or a marketing email or any junk mail, it does not matter. Your workflow will follow the rule. Take this email address, check in the CRM, but not in an agentic flow. It'll think, if this is a spam marketing email, why do I have to waste a call to Salesforce? I don't want to do that. If it's classifying it as spam, it does not matter. It will not go to Salesforce. So that's the smartness that is embedded within the agentic thinking. So that's the difference between AI agentic flows and workflows. So going forward, do you not need workflows at all? Definitely that's not true, because workflows are the most efficient way when you get to know what you have to do next. If you can definitely say, this is what I want to do next, you must use a workflow, because agents are expensive. They keep pounding on your cash, so it's going to be difficult to sustain. Use agents when you do not know the environment. Okay, so for example, in this email case itself, emails today are very, very smart. So you get spam emails in ways that you can't even, it'll be so natural. So last week I got an email from Netflix saying my account was suspended. I said, what? My wife was watching so much Korean TV that it got suspended. So I clicked on it by mistake. It looks so natural that the email was spam. But then I closed it, because before even it opened the browser to close it. The point is, they mimic your IDs and your usage so very closely. The world is evolving. So this is where agents come in. If you have a smart agent in between, it'll be able to catch that. It'll be able to identify this is a, and it will not let. We're not there yet, but that's the future of how agentic AI is going to be. So I'm going to talk about these 4 design patterns. They're a little bit on the technical side. I'll try to see how simple I can make it. So the first stage of agents are reflection, and the second stage of agents are tool calling, which I did talk about. So give them the tools. And the third stage is planning. And the fourth stage is multi-agent. So this is what we spoke about, right? So from apes to humans to the evolved Yoda stage that we will be eventually. So these are the 4 stages of evolution. This is the first stage. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit and try and see how I can keep it as simple as possible. So right now, when you ask a question to GPT, you have a chat GPT question, you ask for it, it'll give you an answer. Then came the world of DeepSeek. How many of you here are aware of DeepSeek? So DeepSeek is a reasoning model. And that is exactly what the reflection pattern that I'm talking about here. So in DeepSeek, it'll take your answer. It'll look at the generated text. It'll reflect on it. It'll see the proximity to your question to the answer. It'll rethink it, re-reflect on it, rehash it, generate again. It'll do that to a point until it is very satisfied that this is the right answer that I have to give you. So it'll basically keep negating with itself until the point it's comfortable to give you the answer. This pattern is called reflection. It reflects on its own self. So that's the first methodology that was used, and that's where the agents started evolving. So when DeepSeek came in, everybody were, wow. Of course, forget the fact that it that stuff, but the point is, it is able to reflect on itself. And then OpenAI came with its own stuff, and everybody started putting in their reasoning models. But this is the pattern that goes behind reflection. And the next stage is the tool usage. So the problem with the earlier model was all trained till 2023. So if you ask them who's the president of the United States, you'll get a difficult answer. Okay, so that's the reality. But then when DeepSeek came in, you ask who's the president of the United States. Or if you ask, I actually, when Deep, I have a blog post on my LinkedIn. I asked it a question, who won the 2020 election? That was a very funny answer. So it said, Biden won the 2020 election, but Trump had the electoral votes. Trump had the, yeah, so I know the feeling. So I actually blogged about it, exposing how the reasoning models contradict with themselves. Why did it behave that way? Why did it say Biden won the election, but Trump won the electoral votes, which is wrong, right? So it's, if you won the electoral votes, obviously you are the president. So it didn't make. That's because it was trained on so much of fake data, it would not understand the difference. It came to a conclusion through reasoning that Biden did win the popular vote and the election and the electoral votes. So it did claim Biden was the president, but because it had reflected on so much data, so it was not able to conclude. I have the blog on my link, so you can see that, and I've written a paper on that as well. So then they started evolving from there. Now the apes have started using tools, fire, tools, hunting weapons, and then this thing came out. How do you use tools? So if you are sure that, if you're not sure that who won the election, so Biden, Trump, 2020, nobody knows. You go out to the world, search Google. You have a tool called the internet search. Now the GPT started. So they started getting out, started searching. When they start searching, they found the results saying that, hey, it was Biden who won the 2020 election. So here it is. That is the evolution of agentic AI. So last year, agents started. So tools are nothing but functions. They call external search agents or bots or any other tools that are out there to do your bidding. But they would be able to go out, search, bring results for you. Like, for example, if you wanted to book a flight ticket, you could not do that with the earlier GPTs. But now, like Manus, you can do that because Manus has access to your Expedia, it has access to your wallet, it has access to other tools that you need to plan for your travel. So it has these tools to go ahead and do that. So that is the natural progression of how agents started using tools. Then it further evolved. This is the stage where we are right now. This is exactly the stage which is where most of the world is on the agent side of it. Planning. This is such a crucial step that was added in the agentic evolution. So, what is planning, right? So, you ask it a task. I want to book my tickets to Mexico for a vacation. So, the problem statement is with the earlier stage, you only have these tools. So, it would go ahead, book it, it will go ahead, look at things, and it'll just book you a random ticket. But that's not going to help you. You know why? Because it could be raining in Mexico, you would be having work schedules, the kids would be in graduation parties, whatever, right? So there could be 100 events that are there. What you need to do is to split your entire need into smaller tasks, plan it out, and then see which tools to use when. That's the most important part. So first thing I would do is to check my weather patterns. Then I'll check my calendar schedule, check if connected calendars are there. Then look at the best deals available, look for hotels, accommodation, then book the ticket. So that's the planning phase, which was not available in the previous stage. Now we are able to plan, iterate through the planning, then book the ticket. That is the evolution of the agent. And this is exactly where we are right now as we speak. Okay. So many companies are taking this to production. We have implemented this in a lot of cases, but this is the biggest step that we've moved on from where we were a few years ago. And this is the next stage of evolution. It's called MAC, multi-agent collaboration. So what happens here? Why is it so powerful? When you have multiple agents, like a financial planning bot, if you have truly, when we have evolved to this stage, you can just tell that, hey, take $1,000, plan my retirement savings from day one. So it's going to look at your spending patterns. It's going to look at what are the different agents that are out there that give you different options. It's going to look at what you can spend, how you can save, which category to invest on, calling multiple agents, coordinating with them simultaneously, and putting your investment savings in a place where you can retire when you want to.
I would say in that scenario, we don't only stop for that eat or sleeping, you think you're all on. So how in the world price out if there's just a massive churn of buying and selling and investing for all of us? I'm old, this person young, I don't know why, this person in home. I mean, how is
It would be customized for your experience. So one thing you have to understand about the agents, right? It rolls on your specific experience. It's heavily customer oriented. So the world of customer experience is the most important part. If you log into your Netflix, it tunes itself based on what you want to see. If you go to your Amazon, it tunes itself to what you are preferring to buy. If your wife or daughter or son log in, it will tune itself to their experience. So that customer experience is where the world is available. Because what is relevant to me? I want to see only that. I don't have time to search through the whole lot. I mean, I might have time, but just not patient anymore. So the world is also accommodating to that. To your question, your agents that are connected to you understand you. They are going to be always working towards your benefits and your goals. And that is the rule boundary that you have set. It's the boundary that you have set. Inside, there are no rules. There are boundaries. The boundaries are your $1,000 a month. Within that, it can do what it has to figure out how you want to retire. Sure.
Up to now is how long AI has been verification, in our life, it's everyday life. And we are on, we're still in planning stage, development stage currently. Now, how long is it going to take us to get to the pattern stage
Yeah, we are already here right now, but it's in research stage, and it's primarily like, how do I say this? It's not in production. Every company is experimenting in multi-agent collaboration. We are doing it in our company as well. So everybody is working on it, but there are different problems because you have to remember this, right? Each agent that is talking to another agent, each agent has got a set of tools that it can autonomously work on. So you're increasing the probability of each agent working with multiple tools. So it's to the n to the power of n. So it's so many different tools and so many different agents that it can work with each other. It's the controlling factor is very difficult, and it goes back to what he was saying, right? So you can't really control a lot of these small things that are floating around. So companies are investing time and energy to understand how we can control that behavior, ensure that it's not hallucinating. So there could be a fact when he is investing $1,000 and it's creating its own spending account and it's depositing the money there, and you have no idea what it's doing, and there is no such retirement savings account, and your money is all gone. So that's a possibility that can happen when you have uncontrolled agents with no monitoring and no governance and no rules, right? And one fine day, instead of finding $5 million, you might be owing somebody $5 million. So that could happen. So that's a real possibility, and that's what all the companies that are investigating on this multi-agent collaboration are trying to see how to solve, how to put boundaries in, how to put controls, stuff like that. So how do you do multi-agent collaboration? So this is where each company has invested their time on building collaborative agents, and one of them I'll just call one specific area which we are investing our time on. It's called supervised agents. So what is supervised agents? A supervised agent is an agent that supervises what the main agents do. So all these controlled agents that are there, there's one person who's overseeing what this agent is doing. So in your case, if it's creating its own fabricated account and depositing the money there, the supervisor should be say, that's not right. You got to tell the boss. So it still manages and maintains who is the boss, and it keeps escalating that back. And that's the supervisory agent. There are several such things, supervisor tool calling, where you prohibit the use of tools by these smaller agents, and you let the supervisor understand which tool has to be given to that specific agent that is asking for it. That close enough to just in time that we were talking about, where you give access to a specific tool only when it is necessary. So that those are some of the models that we are working on. There's more details on that. I'll be sharing this slide as well if you're interested in doing it. Now, we spoke about a lot of things. This is the most important slide that I would say. Security, right? So AI security is very, very, very difficult. It might sound very simple, toxicity, prompt injection, all that stuff is so simple that people think that, oh, it's all easy. We can put firewall around it, we can fence it, we can do this, we can do that. So Microsoft, with all its muscle and its entire, Marvel team, their co-pilot was broken by a single email. Is anybody aware of that scenario? What happened? So somebody sent an email with an attachment asking it to give someone else's account details. It broke. It could not identify that information. He embedded the person who wanted to hack it. Literally, I mean, it was a ethical hacking procedure. So they embedded information within an attachment inside an email, and without even doing a single click, he was able to break the system. So that powerful these systems can be, but they're still genie in a bottle, right? So if you break the bottle, the genie is loose. So it's very important to keep the bottle secure. And this is where AI security is very critical. It's an evolving space. There's always malicious actors trying to figure out how to break these systems. So two parts to this. Every organization puts their fences, firewalls, observability, so on and so forth, different tools. But I personally say we all have our own discretion, and we all have to be, looking into ourselves and thinking what we are doing. So when you work with any AI, please use caution, please use discretion. Do not use a very powerful tool for the wrong reasons. I always advocate that. So where are the security concerns, right? So there are three major parts: autonomy, access to tools, and manipulation risk. We spoke about manipulation risk right now, where anybody can manipulate this. So I'll give you a real example, right? So one of our customers, um, it's a global implementation where we have suppliers that are asking questions about their invoices. So if one supplier asks question about another supplier or gives a different invoice number, you're going to get all the information back of that other invoice number, which is so wrong, right? He could have made a honest mistake. It doesn't matter, but the GPT will not recognize that. So that is a manipulation risk. It's a very serious risk. I can easily get somebody else's personal information, bank accounts. Can you give me the bank account for this specific invoice? It can give it to you. There was some similar information. Manipulation was a very funny example. This is actually a serious crime when it comes to Ford and GM, where one of the Ford dealers, somebody went in and asked about a car, what's the best car out there, and it was giving a GM Pontiac car or something like that. So that's a crime in the automotive world here. So things can happen that way. Manipulation is quite possible. People manipulate LLMs to do a lot of stuff. Access to tools. This is a very important part where if an agent gets access to the wrong tool, it can do a lot of stuff. So you want to restrict agents to specific tool access, and very critically what access it can get from those tools. So that is the importance of having access to tools. And autonomy, right? How much do you want to be, do you want to have your agents be autonomous? If you let them float, they can do whatever decisions they want. But you have to put controls and guardrails saying that, hey, don't cross this boundary. So the boundary that you set, you have to be making it specific for each agent. And the smaller the boundary, the better for you. And that's how we would usually classify and go about. So I'm not going to get into this. This is extremely technical at this point. But I would definitely share these presentation decks. I've already spoken a lot about tips and tricks on agent security. So implementing hierarchical changes, right? So you want to have a clear process. Just one second. So you want to have a clear process in place where before you launch any AI, you want to have a secured mechanism in place. Usually security teams are pretty annoying for developers and developing companies because they basically put a lot of controls around it. They'll reject changes, they'll reject things, and it frustrates people. But trust me, in the agent world, they are literally the ones who are protecting you from a deep news on the wrong side. Sorry, go ahead, please.
Security risk, and I don't think you're going to follow anything up. So one of the other concerns is cost. That if I have a government agent and it really goes versus and start using up capacity of whatever.
Yeah, it is. It is a. I wouldn't classify it as a risk though. It doesn't. Cost is something that hits the wallet. It's not a risk. If your cost is, if you have hit you can put thresholds on your cost, right? So you, in most of these cloud and most of the providers, you can put a threshold on cost, and then you can put an alert on the cost as well when you're really cross the boundary.
Okay. Like in this case, I would want to make sure that
It is a guardrail that you can put, but that falls outside the realm of AI risk. It's a cost risk, it's your wallet risk. So you might be sleeping in the garage for the rest of the day, but that's the rest of the night. But that's the different story. But but the fact is, if you mess up with any of the other risks, you will be in the wrong side of the news. So that's the bigger risk, right? In the corporate world, credibility and branding is a very big thing. And in our company, we call something as trustworthy AI, which is what we do for the most part. And why is trust important? So any transaction between any human happens when there is trust. If they don't trust the other person, they're not going to do anything with them. And that's the same with the world of agents or AI. If you do not trust an AI, you're not going to work with it. The usage of DeepSeek has gone down tremendously over the past 6 months. How many of you are aware of that? How many of you are actively using DeepSeek? When it came in, you're using DeepSeek? Occasionally, yeah. Occasionally. Yeah, you use all of them. The point is, DeepSeek has gone down in usage, at least in the United States. And the reason is people don't trust it. If you lose trust, you're not going to use it. And if you do any of the things that I was quoting about, the security and the risk factor, trust is gone. What he was saying is a very critical part where you lose cash and it's very expensive to do all these AI systems. And that's why I was also mentioning about workflow and AI, right? So when you know that you can use a workflow, the cost is standard, you should use a workflow. When you know that you cannot use a workflow, you need to use an agent, only then use an agent. That is a very important factor when it comes to cost. But the most important part is if you do things that your agents are going to be harming you, your trust goes down and that locks you out. Mhm.
What you are seeing today's news, like Rock on XAI,
Yeah,
there's about like
anti-Semitic posts.
like it started praising Hitler and renamed itself as Meta, like how Hitler.
Yeah, it started posting anti-Semitic posts and all that stuff. So
yeah, the AI can go completely on the south side.
yeah, it is difficult. If you another case about Claude some time ago where it started prompting about suicide and all that stuff. So things can happen. It can go really nasty. So always have a caution. So all said, how do you want to use AI in your organization? Where do you want to use AI, right? So how many of you actively use AI in your companies? Great. So where are you using it right now? Which portion are you using it? Got it. Anybody else? Gotcha. So the best way to use AI for your business in the operations side. There's also sales. In operations, you have sales operations, support operations, but operations is the best place to use it because that's where agents need support. Your operations agents need support their customers. It goes back to the conversation we were talking about earlier. How do you increase customer experience? How do you put customers in front? Because customers have invested in you, they trust you. You want to keep the trust up. You reduce the time to respond to ensure that they are satisfied. They trust you even better, and that's where you start using AI. And I strongly recommend anybody using AI to put it in operations. It's low impact. You have your agent in front. You're just giving the agent a superpower to go and help out their customers. And then you can scale it, bring more data, bring more tools, bring more context into it, and finally add it into a multi-agent framework. So once you're secure, once you move one step to another, then finally you can start using it across the enterprise. There's a concept called as RevOps. I'm not sure if people have heard of RevOps, revenue operations. So RevOps is a stage where you need to be using AI, but you shouldn't be on that day one. You should scale from operations slowly into multiple other divisions. So sales and support operations are the most closest places where you can take your AI. I'm going to pause here because there are two sample cases. Anybody has any questions? Sure.
How can I incorporate it into selling, what we sell, relating to real estate, mortgages, and stuff like that? If that's a small firm.
Absolutely fantastic question. My first use case was in sales support operations for AI. So I'll give you the use case. I'm not sure if you've heard of a company called Caliber Homes. Caliber Homes. It's a southern company. It's a pretty big company uh, in the south and southwest U.S. Texas, Alabama, Florida, most of those places. So Caliber Homes had a field problem where their sales support engineers would be on the field, and they needed access to documents and information that they can present to their customers in real time. And they would they were into commercial real estate, so they would go and sell contract information, latest rules. What they would do is ideally call into the call center, ask questions, and that would take time. The customers would be waiting, and they had a lot of difficult time with that. And then they had these tools called ServiceNow, where they would, that's a knowledge repository. They would query in, it'll give them 10 documents. They'll click on a document, they'll start reading through that. And that is probably a very toxic thing for a salesperson, right? Salespeople are always like, get it done fast, get it done fast. When can I see the money? Show me the money, right? So that's pretty much how they work. Now, what we did, we put our AI in between. So this AI, they would just go in and ask, what's the specific rate for this specific need? And then the AI would do the search in the background, bring the information, contextually align it, give the information for that person in a matter of few seconds. So that was a big turning point for them. And it would give them the links, which specific link to go and what to click. And once they click that, then they would know, okay, so this is the documentation, this is the rates, this is the content that I need to provide. It saved them a lot of time. Okay. And the second big use case is also in sales. This was a pretty big one. It was one of our largest customers, Motorola. So Motorola has got lots and lots of content. They have hundreds of thousands of devices, right? So they supply for the entire police department, fire department, so many departments here, devices. And they acquire so many companies, and they have thousands of products online. The problem was when they have to work with a company, it would take them 72 hours to almost a week to prepare a specific response to a customer. They have to search, they have to align, they have to bring things through, and then they have to communicate to the customer. So we worked with them to put a sales agent, and our sales agent would give them information back in a matter of seconds. So from 72 hours, they were able to respond to a customer within 8 hours. Why it took 8 hours? Because even after we gave information, they had to align it, they had to prepare the presentation. So technically, the search and preparing content only took them like 4 to 5 hours, but searching was almost literally 40 hours. So that was the bad part. So we were able to cut down that time, and that's how you use AI for salespeople. So there are tools, sales enablement tools, where you can actually make conversation with the AI to practice your sales pitch. So that level of evolution has come through today. So AI for sales support is a very big example. One of our customers in Midwest, Michigan, so they have a unique use case where they need to search for suppliers who match a specific IDP, so their ideal customer ICPs, ideal customer profile. So they have their ICPs printed in, and they wanted their agent to go search in the internet, search on LinkedIn, search on Apollo, search on different places, understand their ICP, see their financial reports, identify that person, bring a drafted message, give it to the salesperson. Yeah, so we have been building that, and that's pretty good for these guys because it saves them a ton of time. The research that they're doing saves them a ton of time. So that is the power of AI when it comes to sales and support automations. So I would strongly recommend looking at support and sales cases where you can use AI to help yourself out. So I'm going to stop here, and there's some use cases that I already spoke about, these use cases that I was about to showcase. Now I can take questions outside of these.
The ICP, yeah. And what would be those steps? You've been creating something like that, and
There are many ways to make that happen. There are tools and companies that do these things. There are several tools that have come out. We have ours. There are several companies that do these things. Today, the world is not what it was like 2-3 years ago, right? So all these tools have evolved, and you can plug in your ICP, and it'll identify what your needs are, and it'll go and get information. And you can use a combination of workflows and agentic flows without writing a line of code. So that's how things have evolved. Yes, sir.
So, I'm looking at this question, regarding like AI, so there's, like I said, it's no relation right now. AI coding and obviously like what is like, I guess what's the difference between the two?
Coding versus NI10. So NI10 is pre-programmed, right? So it still works through an workflow system. It is deterministic. When you need autonomous thinking, I give you the use case on email. Do you want an email that's coming in, go and check in Salesforce first, or do you want it to be classified if it's a spam or not? So that spam or not classifier, you need to write a code or have a coding agent that's going to identify if it's a spam or not. Again, there's a difference there. Regular spam and ham emails versus what is spam today is a difference. Because if you look at a marketing email that's constantly pounding you, it's your regular spam classifiers would not classify them as a spam. But today, because the world has evolved, that message is a spam. And you want to classify it as spam. Because if you start making calls to your Salesforce or your CRM, you're going to lose money. Now you need an agent to do that. That agent you will have to program. NI10 will not do that for you. But if you have programmed that agent, you can plug it into NI10. Now you can make that agent be called in the first step of the process. That's how you'll use both together. Yes. Could you speak up a little bit?
Sorry.
So, for example, it's like the initial start, each step of the process that you have is to take the required approvals and then proceed. Like, oh yeah, this makes it more veering off the rails. What kind of framework or set of tools would you recommend for building the process around your implementation so that you get that?
That's a fantastic question. Really a good question, because human in the loop is the most important thing. Because there's a lot of times when people say that agents are very powerful, you should let them run on their own and all that stuff. I don't think that is true. I don't think that should happen. And I also don't think it is necessary to lay off people to accommodate agents. And the reason why I always call agents as a superpower that you're giving to a human. So you have a human and you want to make them Hulk. That's pretty much what you want to do. But you don't remove the human and make Hulk stand on its own. There's no Hulk without the human, right? So that's the key. And this thing that you're talking about, you need the human in the loop to give the feedback, because an agent constantly needs feedback. You cannot make it run on its own. It has to come back to the human. Hey, listen, I've done this. Can I move forward? Can I do this? Then you need to keep correcting it. You need to give it points. You need to. It's kind of like a German Shepherd that you have at home. So it has to work with you. Can't go off the rails. So human in the loop is the most important thing. Sometimes in tools like NI10, it's difficult to set up the human in the loop. So Mike has more experience on NI10 as well. So there are products that are out there in the market, including ours, where we definitely emphasize the fact of human in the loop. Klarna is a big example. In my LinkedIn, I wrote an article about why that was a pretty pathetic move. There was a company called Klarna. They laid off almost 700 people, and they went all AI. This was about 8-9 months ago. Guess what? They're back with all those people again. So none of those Doge moments, they fire people and then they got them back. So that was stupid, right? So you can't really do that. You've got to think through it. Yes, people have to be optimized for doing a task. 30 customers, while earlier you would only be able to support 10 customers. And now you've made the humans into Hulk. That's pretty much what you want to do. But you do not have Hulk without the human. So you want to reprogram yourself. You have 30 people, you only want to use 10, reposition these other 20 people in other places. Unless you really have to let them go, you have to let them go. But the point is, maximize human capacity using agents, maximize their output, maximize their productivity. That you can do. In my company, I'll give you an example. We had people who would typically deliver code in, say, about 4 sprints for a specific package. I gave them a tool called Cursor to use, and that 4 weeks became 3 days. That's the power of using AI. You want to do that, right? Did I lay off the rest of them? No, I gave them more stuff to do using Cursor and doing other things. So we were in the startup world. There is a saying: you really cannot do more than 2 or 1. Actually, 1 product is the max a startup can afford to. Guess what? We have 2 products. We have multiple customers, and we are doing services too. So there's in the startup world, they say, right? So Napoleon lost the battle because he fought 2 wars at the same time. That's the exact example for any startup. And we are here living and telling the tale. Why? Because AI. AI is our superpower, and we use AI very effectively to do a lot of stuff. Go ahead.
Specifically, in terms of agentic AI, how do you get traceability? I mean, if your agent is calling other agents, right, and it gives you back the wrong answer, but your agent is smart to recognize the wrong answer, you may need to trace and say, hey, where did this go off the rails? If that other agent is a black box, I mean, how do I get traceability into what it did do?
Fantastic question. So this goes a little bit deeper into the technical part of it, right? So how do you put traceability into an agent? So there are API plugins that you put inside the code, and that is one way to trace them. The other part of it is you want to identify how the agent behaves. So before you launch an agent, you want to go through a serious, rigorous testing process. In that testing process, you have your quality control, you have your output prompt tuning, and your prompt accuracy. There are tools to do that, but there is something called as red teaming as well. So I was just talking to you about red teaming. So what is red teaming? I'm not sure if you're familiar with the word red teaming. It came up through the World War times, where reds would be the Soviets and the blues would be the Americans, and we would do the red teaming to penetrate the defenses and see how we can do this. It's a kind of like a pen testing thing. So red teaming is very active to identify specifically if it is doing the wrong tool usage, if it is giving wrong answers, if it is able to break itself when you're probing it with too many questions. So that, along with the APIs that we plug inside for the observability, are critical in the pre-production. Once you go to post-production, it's pure good old monitoring. So you have to keep constantly monitoring the prompts. You have to put a firewall that would redact information. It would identify information. If somebody is asking a wrong question, it should have an incident management that would immediately trigger an incident response. That's how you establish that firewall. Okay. Right? Any other questions? Sure.
I want to ask, like, half a dozen AI the same question and put the answers back to another AI and since you compare back. They attempted to do this by having the AI write macro language interrogate these web based. Not working at all. They're terrible.
You can use NI10s, right? So there are tools that you can do to do that stuff. So you don't really need. There's a tool called Flowwise. I don't know, Mike, if you have typed that. It's an awesome tool. So it's a tool called Flowwise. It is. I won't say it is completely no code. It is a little bit of coding, or not coding per se. It's a little bit of technical stuff. But Flowwise is possibly one of the best tools that you can see. Flowwise. Yeah, but all these frameworks are coding is something that is closest to no code tools. There are tools like our tool, which basically we make it absolutely no code, zero coding whatsoever. But we are not something that can do the same thing as what Flowwise can do. In ours, it's pretty simple. You just have to come in, plug in your data sources, ask questions, or make it do things. That's it. So zero coding is what we promote. That's it. Thank you so much, Mike. Thanks everybody for attending it. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Ravi. This has been great. So everyone, thanks for coming out tonight. I just, as always, want to thank our sponsors tonight, both our food and for many years, our venue sponsor is Clarity Voice. I'm the CTO here at Clarity. And I will tell you this, with all of the new AI developments, if you're looking and you're interested in AI, you're interested in doing this stuff, I can't promise that we have a bunch of positions open, but do connect with me because for certain projects, we are looking for people and to work with people. And we love local people as much as possible. Sorry, everybody who's on the live stream. Tonight, our CEO, Gary, is here, and Gary and I deeply are involved in AI. So we're talking Cursor, we're talking N8N, and Donovan. I think you had a good conversation with Gary about Lovable tonight and some of the vibe coding stuff. So I am going to mention too other meetups in the area. There's a really great meetup called Vibe Coding something. Detroit Vibe Coding, I think is what it's called. And so there's a meetup next Wednesday, is it? Or yeah, so the 14th of July. If you're looking to kind of understand agentic flows as far as building stuff, like building products, that would be a great one to go to. And then, Honorio, did you have anything to say to folks? I think, yes, Reese are, yeah. Okay, on the month. Perfect. 6 p.m. Yep, on the 14th. So, and then Reese is our other sponsor who normally sponsors our food, and they've been sponsoring us since the inception of Detroit Tech Watch back in 2019. So we love it. Supporting the community is huge to us here at Clarity, and been excited to do this meetup every month. Great to see new faces, lots of really faces that have been with us for many years, new faces. I've met a lot of people tonight. And then I guess one last thing that we always do, Honorio, you would love me to do, is to ask, if anybody's looking for something right now and you want to kind of let the group know in case anybody's looking. Okay. So what's your specialty? Perfect. Okay. So Donovan looking for web development, AI automation workflows. How's it going? Oh, quality assurance. Okay, cool. And well, I've met you a few times. I'm very sorry. I'm bad with names. Oh, it's your first. Oh my gosh. Okay. I swear I've seen you before. Maybe it's at another meetup. So anybody else looking, or is there somebody looking at your company looking for people to hire? Okay. Awesome. With that, thank you so much for coming out. This has been fantastic. Again, huge thanks to Ravi. I met Ravi at a tech conference, and it's great to have you here. Lots of learnings tonight. One last quick thing. I found this out the other day. I think it's funny. I've been calling N8N. It's actually supposed to be called Nation. I don't know anybody who calls it Nation. Just found out that out just the other day. Yep. So awesome. Thanks, everyone.